Today we're tackling something really big.
Yeah,
Our own Milky Way galaxy.
that's a pretty big topic.
It is. We're going to be basing this deep dive on the book The Milky Way, an autobiography of our galaxy by Moiya McTier. Have you had a chance to look at this one?
I have. It's a really fascinating read.
Yeah.
The unique approach, having the Milky Way itself narrate its own story, is just captivating.
Yeah, it's like a 13.6 billion-year-old being telling you all its secrets, right?
Exactly. And it really digs deep into everything, from its birth to its structure.
And even to us. I mean, she talks about how life emerged here on Earth, how we fit into this grand scheme.
It's mind-blowing to think about.
It is. And what I love is how McTier, as an astrophysicist and a folklorist, blends science and storytelling so well. You don't get bogged down in jargon. You really get this sense of the Milky Way as a character.
Yeah, it's not your typical dry science book. It's engaging. You can tell she's passionate about the subject.
Yeah.
And she brings the Milky Way to life,
Yeah.
Gives it this personality.
Totally. And that's what makes this book so special, right? I mean, we often talk about the Milky Way as this vast, almost abstract entity. But in this book, it's a voice. It's a personality.
Yeah, and it's a voice that emphasizes how interconnected everything is, from the formation of stars to, well, us.
Okay, so we've got this Milky Way with a personality, with a story to tell. Give us a taste. What's a moment from the book that really captures that voice?
Okay, so there's this part where the Milky Way says something like, I'm not just a pretty face. I got stories to tell, stories that would make your little black hole spin.
Wow, I love that. It's funny, but it's also kind of wise, like this ancient being giving us a little wink.
Exactly. It's that blend of humor and wisdom that makes it so compelling.
It makes you realize how much we still have to learn. So let's dig into some of these stories. The book covers a massive amount of time, right? Like billions of years of galactic history.
Yeah, it's hard to even wrap your head around those timescales.
Yeah.
I mean, billions of years. That's just wow.
It is. But McTier manages to weave it all together. Is there a particular event or era from the book that really stood out to you?
Well, one that I found particularly interesting is the formation of the galactic bulge, that dense central region of the Milky Way.
Oh, the galactic bulge. That always sounded kind of mysterious. What exactly happened there?
So, billions of years ago, a huge amount of gas and stars, just enormous quantities, rapidly collapsed toward the center of the galaxy.
Wow.
And this formed a dense core. It's like the ancient heart of the Milky Way. And it shaped the structure and influenced the orbits of everything else, including our solar system.
Hold on, so everything, even our little solar system, is essentially dancing around this ancient, massive structure.
Pretty much. It's kind of humbling, isn't it?
Definitely. It makes you wonder what other hidden forces are at play out there, shaping our cosmic neighborhood.
Right. And that's what I find so fascinating about studying galaxies. They're not static. They grow, they change, they influence the lives of everything within them over billions of years.
Yeah, and speaking of influence, the book also takes time to reflect on humanity's place in all of this, doesn't it?
It does. It goes beyond just stars and black holes. It touches on us, our role, our impact. It has some pretty big questions.
What do you think the Milky Way's perspective on humanity is based on the book?
I think there's a sense of appreciation for our curiosity, our drive to understand the universe.
We're always trying to figure things out, right?
Yeah, and I think the Milky Way recognizes that. But there's also this note of caution, a sense that we need to be mindful of our impact, the potential consequences of our actions.
It's like a gentle reminder that we have a responsibility not just to each other, but to this entire incredible galaxy that we call home.
Exactly. It prompts us to think about our legacy, about how we want to be remembered in this grand cosmic narrative.
Are we just temporary passengers, or are we something more?
That's the question, isn't it?
It is. And I appreciate how McTier doesn't shy away from these big, almost philosophical questions. It's not just about the science, it's about the meaning, the wonder of it all.
Absolutely. And what's really striking is how she incorporates mythology and historical accounts into the scientific explanations, to deepen that understanding.
Yeah, I noticed that. It's like she's weaving together different ways of knowing, different ways of seeing the universe.
Right. There's this chapter on constellations, for example, where the Milky Way talks about how various cultures have looked up at the same stars and seen different patterns, created their own stories and myths.
Oh, I remember that. Like how we see Ursa Major, the Great Bear, but other cultures might see a plow or a wagon, right?
Exactly. The stars themselves are objective realities, but how we interpret them, the stories we weave around them, those are shaped by our culture, our history, our imagination.
It's fascinating how science and storytelling have always been intertwined when it comes to the cosmos, even before we had telescopes and all the fancy technology.
They have. And even though those ancient stories might not be scientifically accurate, they reveal something profound about our enduring fascination with the universe, our desire to connect with it, to understand our place within it.
So it's not just about hard facts and figures, it's about the human element too, right? Our relationship with the Milky Way goes beyond just science.
Precisely. And the Milky Way. An autobiography of our galaxy captures that beautifully. It blends those elements together in a way that's both informative and deeply engaging.
I'm definitely hooked. We've only scratched the surface of this galactic story, though. What else awaits us in this deep dive?
Well, next we'll be taking a closer look at the heart of the Milky Way, exploring those stellar nurseries where stars are born, and delving into the dramatic life cycle of stars. It's going to be a wild ride.
Sounds incredible. Stay tuned, listeners, as we continue our journey through the Milky Way, an autobiography of our galaxy. Welcome back to our deep dive into the Milky Way. We covered a lot of ground in the last part, talking about the galaxy's structure and its history, and even humanity's place in it all. But now let's shift gears a little and zoom in on something a bit more dazzling. What do you say we talk about stars?
Sounds good to me. Stars are definitely one of the most captivating aspects of the Milky Way.
Yeah.
And McTier does a fantastic job in her book of taking us on a tour of their life cycles, from birth to death and everything in between.
It's pretty wild to think about everything that's happening out there, all the drama unfolding in these stellar nurseries, right?
Oh yeah, stellar nurseries. They're these vast clouds of gas and dust, often stretching for light years. It's in these clouds, surprisingly, where stars are born.
It seems counterintuitive, right? These dark, cold clouds being the birthplaces of these brilliant, fiery stars.
It is. But it all comes down to gravity. Slowly, over millions of years, gravity draws the particles in these clouds together, and these clumps become denser and hotter and hotter.
Until, boom, a star is born.
Exactly. When the temperature and pressure at the core reach a critical point, nuclear fusion ignites, and a star is born.
So that's the moment a star truly comes to life, when it starts fusing hydrogen into helium in its core.
Yep, and that process can go on for billions of years, depending on the star's mass.
So a star's mass is really the key to its destiny. It determines how long it will live, how brightly it will shine, and even how it will eventually die.
Exactly. Let's take our sun, for example.
Okay, good old Sol, keeping us warm. What's its story? How does its mass determine its fate?
Well, our sun is what we call a pretty average star. It's been steadily fusing hydrogen into helium for about 4.6 billion years.
That's a pretty long time.
It is, and it's got about another 5 billion years to go before it starts to run out of fuel.
Okay, so we've got some time before things get dramatic, but when a star like our sun does run out of fuel, what happens then?
Things get a little less stable, that's for sure. Basically, the sun will start to expand.
Expand, like how much are we talking?
A lot. It'll swell up into a red giant, becoming so large that it'll likely engulf Mercury and Venus.
Whoa, that's getting a little too close for comfort. What about Earth? Are we doomed?
It's possible that Earth could get swallowed up too. But even if it doesn't, the intense heat from the expanding sun will make life here impossible.
So it's not exactly a happy ending for us. But what happens to the sun after its red giant phase?
Well, eventually, the outer layers of the red giant will drift away, creating this beautiful, glowing cloud called a planetary nebula.
Oh, I've seen pictures of those. They're stunning.
They are. And what's left behind at the center is the sun's core, which will have shrunk down into a dense white dwarf.
So even in death, stars create something beautiful. But what about those stars that are much bigger than our sun? Their end must be even more spectacular, right?
Absolutely. Massive stars go out with a bang. Literally, they explode as supernovas.
Supernovas, talk about a cosmic fireworks display.
It's the most powerful explosion in the universe. And McTier emphasizes how these explosions are crucial for creating the elements that make up, well, everything.
Hold on, so the calcium in our bones, the iron in our blood, it all came from exploding stars.
You got it. We are literally made of stardust.
Oh, that is just amazing. It really puts things into perspective, you know. We're not just observers of the universe, we're participants. We're made from the same stuff as the stars.
Exactly. And that's what I love about the Milky Way, an autobiography of our galaxy. It constantly reminds us that we're part of this grand cosmic story, a story that's been unfolding for billions of years.
It's a story that began with the formation of the first stars and led to the creation of planets like ours, planets that could support life.
Right, and speaking of planets, we can't forget that our Milky Way is just one galaxy among countless others out there, and each of those galaxies is likely teeming with planets of its own.
It's mind-boggling to think about all those worlds out there. And McTier doesn't just focus on our galaxy. She talks about how galaxies interact with each other, how they can collide and merge and engage in this sort of gravitational dance.
Yeah, the universe is a very dynamic place. These interactions between galaxies can be incredibly dramatic.
Wait a minute, galaxies can actually collide. What happens then? Is it like a cosmic demolition derby?
Not exactly. It's more like a slow gravitational waltz, really. When galaxies collide, stars rarely crash into each other. It's more that the gas and dust within the galaxies get stirred up, which can trigger intense bursts of star formation.
So it's more of a cosmic blending than a head-on collision. But hold on, didn't I hear somewhere that our Milky Way is on a collision course with another galaxy?
You heard right. We're headed for a merger with our neighboring Andromeda galaxy.
Okay, now I am a little worried. When is this happening? And what's going to happen to us?
Don't worry, it's not happening anytime soon. The merger is still billions of years away. And as I mentioned, it'll be a gradual process. The two galaxies will slowly intertwine, their stars and gas swirling together, and eventually they'll form a new, even larger galaxy.
So the Milky Way as we know it will eventually cease to exist, but something new and spectacular will be born from its ashes.
Exactly. It's a beautiful reminder that the universe is constantly changing, evolving, and creating new wonders.
It really is. McTier has this incredible ability to explain these complex, mind-boggling concepts in a way that makes them understandable and engaging.
I agree. It's like she's taking us by the hand and guiding us through the galaxy, pointing out all the fascinating sights along the way. Speaking of fascinating sights, we're about to delve into one of the biggest mysteries in our next segment, the search for life beyond Earth.
Now that's a topic I've always been curious about. Are we alone in the universe? Or are there other beings out there looking up at their own night skies and wondering the same thing?
It's a question that has haunted humanity for centuries, and in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to explore what modern science has to say about it.
This is getting really exciting. Stick around, listeners, as we continue our exploration of the Milky Way, an autobiography of our galaxy. And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into the Milky Way, an autobiography of our galaxy. We've talked about the galaxy's birth, the life and death of stars, and now it's time to tackle the ultimate question, the one that's kept us looking up at the stars for millennia. Are we alone in the universe?
It's a question that never gets old, does it? And McTier, in this book, approaches it with a real sense of wonder. You know, even the Milky Way, as the narrator, seems curious about this.
Yeah, it's like the galaxy itself is looking out at all those stars and wondering, is anybody else out there? Anyone else sharing this cosmic ride with me?
It's a thought-provoking way to frame it, for sure. I mean, think about it. Billions of stars in our galaxy alone, and countless galaxies beyond. Ours can't be the only one teeming with life, right?
The odds just seem astronomical against it, so to speak. But how do we even begin to search for life beyond Earth? It's not like we can just hop on a spaceship and go exploring every planet.
Yeah, interstellar travel is still a bit out of reach, unfortunately. But scientists have come up with some pretty ingenious ways to search for life from right here on Earth. One of the most promising methods is by studying exoplanets.
Exoplanets, those planets orbiting stars other than our sun. We hear about new discoveries all the time, but how do we even find them? And how do we know if they could host life? It seems like an impossible task.
It is incredibly challenging, but we're getting better at it all the time. One technique that's revolutionized the field is the transit method.
The transit method, what's that?
Okay, imagine an exoplanet passing in front of its host star from our perspective here on Earth.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
When that happens, it causes a tiny, tiny dip in the star's brightness, like a mini eclipse.
So, by carefully observing the light from these distant stars, we can actually detect planets orbiting them.
Exactly. And by analyzing these dips in brightness, we can learn a lot about the planet, like its size, its orbit, and even get clues about its atmosphere.
Hold on a second. You can figure out what's in a planet's atmosphere from light years away? That's insane.
It's true. Scientists are looking for specific gases that could be signs of biological activity, like oxygen, methane, or water vapor.
So it's like a cosmic game of Clue, looking for those telltale chemical fingerprints of life.
Exactly. And there are already quite a few exoplanets out there that have scientists particularly excited.
Really? Like what kind of exoplanets are we talking about?
Well, the most promising candidates are those located within their star's habitable zone.
The habitable zone. That's the sweet spot, right? Where temperatures are just right for liquid water to exist on the surface?
Exactly. Liquid water is considered essential for life as we know it. So finding a planet in the habitable zone is a big deal.
But even if a planet is in the habitable zone, it doesn't necessarily mean it's teeming with aliens, right?
Right. There are a lot of other factors that come into play. The planet's atmosphere, its magnetic fields, its geological activity, all of these things can influence whether life could arise and thrive.
So it's a really complex puzzle, and we're just starting to piece it together.
We are. But that's what makes it so exciting. The possibility of finding life beyond Earth is just incredible. And McTier, in her book, encourages us to really think outside the box when it comes to what alien life might look like.
So we're not necessarily talking about little green men here.
Not necessarily. It could be microbial life, hidden deep beneath the icy surface of a distant moon. Or it could be something so different from anything we've ever imagined that we might not even recognize it as life.
Now that's a mind-blowing thought. It makes you realize how much we still don't know, how much is left to explore. I'm reminded of that Carl Sagan quote, somewhere something incredible is waiting to be known.
He was absolutely right.
Yeah.
And I think The Milky Way, an autobiography of our galaxy, captures that sense of wonder beautifully, that drive to uncover the mysteries of the universe, to find our place within this grand cosmic story.
It's been an incredible journey, hasn't it? From the Milky Way's birth to the life cycle of stars, and now to this exploration of the search for life beyond Earth. It's given me a whole new perspective on our place in the universe.
Me too. It's humbling, inspiring, and makes you realize how much we're all connected, not just to each other here on Earth, but to everything in the cosmos.
Absolutely. Well, listeners, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the Milky Way, an autobiography of our galaxy. I hope you've enjoyed this cosmic journey as much as we have.
And I hope it sparked your curiosity, your sense of wonder, and your desire to learn more about this amazing universe we call home.
And if you're looking for a book that will take you on an unforgettable exploration of the cosmos, I highly recommend checking out The Milky Way, an autobiography of our galaxy by Moiya McTier. It's a read that will stay with you long after you finish the last page.
It will. So until next time, keep looking up, keep asking questions, and keep exploring the wonders of the universe.